Hi guys, it's Jordan from P&P Campers. I'm just going to do your handover video on your Chausson Allegro. So it's an Allegro 83 and based on the Renault Master chassis. So on the left hand side here under the bonnet we've got your brake fluid and reservoir. You've then got your power steering fluid, washer fluid and your engine oil filling point there. Your engine oil dipstick is the yellow topped one just down there. Air filter sits inside this box just here. You can just about see the side of it over here. Engine coolant sits in this reservoir here at the top, and you can see there we're at the perfect level as the engine's cold. This little section down here, just be mindful, this is your turbo. So the turbo sits underneath this heat shield just here. So just be careful, that will be the hottest part of the engine. So try not to touch that. Your engine battery sits under the floor in the cab on the Renaults. So your positive jump starting point is that one just there. And any decent earth really, I mean an earth would be here. This engine hoist part would be a really good earth. Otherwise I don't think there's really a specific earthing point on these. So positive point there for jump starting. On the near side, if you open up the door, you've got your bonnet release handle just inside there. Fuel filler cap, I believe, is on the other side. Your freshwater inlet is this one just here. So that's how you fill up your freshwater, and the drain for that is on the inside of the vehicle, but it'll come out just here somewhere underneath. All right, so freshwater inlet just there. Then you've got your hookup point just here. So having the electric hookup plugged in will allow you to use any sort of 240 volt appliances and plug sockets. Toilet cassette locker. So the toilet cassette itself comes out just by lifting up the little yellow tab and then pulling the cassette out. You can then take it all the way out. The only things you need to know really is that you empty it out from here, and when you're physically emptying it out, hold down the little yellow tab there whilst you're emptying it, and that's about it really. Your blue fluid goes back inside here, and you've got a freshwater flush, so you haven't got to worry about any separate flush fluids or anything like that. At the back we've got a nice big locker here, gives you access to the underneath of the bed from outside. Gas locker, you've got space in here for two 13 kilo propane bottles if you did want those. At the moment we've just got the one 6 kilo. To turn the bottle on, you go anti-clockwise around to the left. To turn it off, you go clockwise around to the right. The regulator up there looks in pretty good shape to me, and you get 5 years on these pigtail hoses. If I could find the date somewhere behind this. Right, 2023, so you got till 28 to replace this hose, so that's brand new. All right, so you need to make sure that you turn this off before you start driving, but that is about it really. A new fitted external gas point, or your barbecue point. So that is what that is just there. That closes over nice and strong like that. External mains socket, if you should ever need that, also closes over nice and strong like that. Your wastewater drain off point is this little handle down here, so you just pull on that and that'll drain out your wastewater. And the last bit really is your boiler vent just there, so if your boiler was lit up on gas, you'd feel the hot air coming out from underneath of here. These two vents just here are both to do with your fridge. So the bottom one there gives you access to the burner and the mains electric parts on there, and the top really just gives you access to kind of like the 12 volt fan, and also probably gives you access to the back of the oven and grill. And yeah, as I said, the fuel filler cap is just inside here. You will need your ignition key to get that off. So ignition key in, twist it, and it comes off on the key. Pop it back on, whichever way it is, twist the key and take it out. Inside the door here, we've actually got your chassis plates. So the one that you want to go off is this one here that says Trigano. So Trigano is the company that owns Chausson and various other companies. So that's your chassis plate. Your paint code should be on here somewhere, I believe. Let me turn it. But that's it. That's just information about the vehicle, really. In the cab itself, I've always liked the Renault chassis. I think they're nice and sort of high up and, you know, quite rugged feeling. You got the 6-speed manual gearbox, which is always nice. Air conditioning from that switch just there, and obviously all of your sort of heater controls just there. Nice and self-explanatory, nice and easy to use. Reversing camera, it is wired up to a reverse switch, so it'll only come on and work when you're in reverse. So that is how that works. I have seen that working as I pulled it out earlier on. Single DIN JVC head unit. To get all of your fans pumping out the air, by the way, you need to press these little buttons here and they just pop open. You can also, I believe, yeah, so you can twist them round so that you can aim the air wherever you want to. So it's quite a clever idea, really. You got your horn, which works from the in button just here on the left hand stalk, lights and fog lamp. Washers and wipers are on the right hand stalk, and your electric adjusting mirrors are from here. Other than that, I think that is about it, really, for the cab. Well, one thing I will just quickly run you through. The handbrake on these, it's really clever. When you get the hang of it, it's you know, really helpful. So because these are swivel seats, the handbrake needs to be out of the way in order for you to you know, swivel the seat around. So the handbrake itself, as you can see at the moment, it is actually on, and we're being held still by the handbrake, but the actual handle is just flapping around. So the reason for that is, it's going to be a bit awkward to show you from this side of it, but when I lift it up to here, it stops and it won't go up any higher. Okay, and as I said, it will just release and go all the way down. So that's because when we get to this point where it stops, just there, that is where the handbrake is actually set to. So if I was to lift it up a little bit now and just release it like a normal handbrake, release, we're now moving backwards. So set the handbrake like you would normally, and then when you let go of it, the actual handle goes down. So hopefully that makes sense. So you just use it like a normal handbrake. The only difference is when you release it, actually when you sort of set the handbrake and then let go of it, it will just drop. Doesn't mean it's not working, it just means that you let go of it and it's dropped down. So, two over-the-shoulder proper seat belts just there, so your two forward-facing belts, always really helpful to have those there. I'll just close this door. So the first thing I want to show you on the inside is the control panel up here. So it's a PC200 Chausson branded control panel. Really simple to use, and you know, one of the easier ones to run through and show how they work. So when you turn this on, the main switch just up here, that then basically just allows the 12-volt power from the Leisure battery to go to all of the, you know, various places. So as soon as you turn that light up, that switch on there, you have access to using all of your lights, including all the little LED ones, and also ignition for various sort of bits and pieces. So ignition for the cooker, that's now on because the main on and off switch is on. So anything that's 12-volt power, basically anything that comes from the Leisure battery, as soon as you turn that on there, it'll have power. You've then also got this switch just here, which is for your awning light, and you can see that by opening up this cupboard just here, and there's your awning light just there. So if you ever needed to replace that, it's so easy. You just pop that little cap off there and just bayonet fitting, take the bulb out. So that is that. And the last switch just here is for your water pump. Now, I haven't actually got any water in the van at all at the moment, so I'm not going to turn it on. But if you want to turn your water pump on, press the switch just there, and the pump will then have power and will pressurize. These three on the left just here, we've got this one at the bottom, which is the one that's actually flashing at us now. So these are your fresh and waste water levels. So if I press that, fresh water, which is this little symbol here, 0 litres. Wastewater, 14 litres. Okay, so I will just say as well, I mean, I don't know about this one particular vehicle, but the wastewater level indicator there, where it says 14 litres, they're not always right, if I'm honest with you. The fresh water is obviously the one that you really need to know about, because when you come to using the vehicle, it's the fresh water that you need in order to pull through the taps. The wastewater ones, because they're sort of always dirty water that goes inside of them, it's really easy for them to get sort of clogged up with dirt, and those level indicators that are inside the actual tank tend to get a little bit corroded and eventually stops this sort of level indicator from working. Now, it might be the case that when you start using this, it'll work absolutely perfectly, or it might be that the wastewater level just always stays around 14. If that is the case, the way that I always like to explain it, because your fresh and your wastewater tanks will be roughly the same size, what you can do is, before you go on holiday, it's always something I recommend, drain out your waste tank so that you know it's completely empty by pulling that handle that I showed you outside, and then close it off when it's empty. And then when you get to where you're going, fill your freshwater tank up all the way, and by the time that you've come towards the end of your freshwater, you can know pretty well for a fact that your waste tank needs emptying out, if that makes sense. So as long as you've used all of your fresh water in your tank, the waste tank probably wants emptying. Or, to be honest, just use as much fresh water as you need to, and then when you come to leaving, just empty the waste tank out. It's not, it's much less important to see the waste level on here, is all I'm trying to get at, really. Anyway, so this little light here will flash at you all the time that your fresh tank is empty. The reason for that is there's quite a few bits and pieces in this particular vehicle that rely on the fresh water and the pump. So obviously any taps and all that sort of stuff need fresh water in the tank to work, but also the toilet as well. As I said, you've got a fresh water flush. So in order to flush the toilet, you do need some fresh water in the tank. All right, I'll show you how to do that in a minute, but I just thought I'd mention that. The middle button is your battery voltage indicator. So this one just here, that is your Leisure battery, and we're on 13.5 volts, which is actually really, really good. Now, I couldn't find it a minute ago, but I'm pretty certain there must be a solar panel on the roof. As in, I couldn't find the regulator. So, oh, it's down there. There you go. So that's your solar regulator just down there, this little bit here. So that means that you've got some solar panel power coming down to it and then going into your Leisure battery, which is just underneath that little black cover there. Okay, so if you didn't have a solar panel and there was nothing charging up the Leisure battery, you would expect to see that around sort of 12 or 12.2. All right, so that being on 13.8 is actually really quite impressive, to be fair. I mean, it is a nice sunny day, but can't argue with that, really. That's really, really good. So if we click on that again, it will show us the vehicle voltage, the vehicle battery voltage, 12.4. So that's absolutely perfect. The top one is just your internal and external temperatures. Okay, and that is about right, actually. Okay, so that's how you use your control panel. The next thing I'm going to just run you through is to do with the boiler. So the boiler itself is really the most expensive part in this van, and the part that you really need to look after. So the way to sort of look after one of these boilers is pretty simple when you get the hang of it, but there's just a few things you need to sort of be wary of. So at the moment, as I said, I haven't got any water in the tank whatsoever. All right, so that means I cannot use the boiler on hot water, or I can't heat the water up, because there's more than likely nothing in the boiler. Okay. Much like if you got a kettle and left it completely empty, plugged it into that socket over there and switched it on, it's going to either melt because it gets too hot because you're not actually heating anything up, or it'll just burn all the wires out and stuff like that. Okay, so in order to actually heat water up, you need to have water inside of it. So to be sure of that, you need to, 1, make sure you've got some fresh water in the tank. 2, turn your pump switch on and just come over to here and essentially just pull the water through. Pull the hot water through there. As long as the water comes through this tap nice and clearly and there's no sort of coughing, spluttering all over the place like crazy, then you can know for a fact that the boiler is full of water. All right, I don't want to sort of bore you too much with it, but the reason that works is that the way that motorhomes water systems work is you've got the fresh tank. So if you imagine, I don't know if this is going to work, but if you imagine that this here is the fresh tank, this is the boiler, and this is your tap. Okay, if you turn the pump on, all that it does when you pull the cold water through, yeah, it literally draws water straight from the fresh water tank straight to the tap. Okay, if you draw the water through on the hot side of the tap, it draws the water through from the fresh tank through the boiler and then to the tap. So if this boiler isn't actually full of water yet, there's no way the water will come from the tank and then to the tap. So if it's coughing and spluttering at you and there's no water coming through the tap, it means that it's filling the boiler up. Okay, so that's how you can fill the boiler up with water. The other thing you have to remember, I'm not trying to scare you with all this information, it's just that it's really important to sort of look after them. You've got this little thing down here. Okay, so this is your boiler drain off. Now it's actually really easy to use, but all you need to know really is, because it's an automatic drain off valve, what will happen is if it gets to about sort of 3 or 4 degrees outside, or actually inside the vehicle, it will just drain the water out from inside the boiler. Okay, and it's basically doing that to save the water from freezing inside of here and eventually sort of, you know, creating leaks all over the place basically. So if I show you what it actually does, if it automatically drains itself out, what it will do is twist this top bit like that. You can see now the little blue button down here has popped out. So now if I want to stop this from draining out, I twist this back again and push the button in. So now this drain off point is completely closed and it's not draining anything out underneath. So that is how you can manually do it, like I've just done there. Or if you find that you can hear the water draining out from underneath the tank onto the floor, just come in here, twist it like I did to this point here, and push the blue button back in. Once you've done that, you'll then be able to fill the boiler up with water. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. So that's the boiler drain off. You've got your gas isolators just there. So if you wanted to isolate the gas from any particular appliances, isolate them just by turning it like that. Oh, I was twisting that a bit too hard there. There you go. Okay, so that is your boiler just down there. As I was saying, you've got the leisure battery just down there underneath that little black cover. And that is about it. You've got lots of nice bits and pieces in here. So you've got your awning winder, steady winder, spare wheel, all that sort of stuff's in here, nice and tucked away. Okay, so if you then want to use the boiler, so assuming that you've made sure there's water in the boiler by doing what I've just shown you there, you can come up to here and use the boiler however you want to. Now I will just point out as well, if you just want to heat the van up, if you don't want any hot water at all, you can do that without any hot water in the tank. All right, but it's just so important that if you are going to try and heat the water up inside of it, or if you do want hot water at the taps, you 100% need to just double check that you've got fresh water at the hot side of the tap. Okay. All right, so the way that the actual boiler works, assuming you've got your gas switched on in the locker, you can come here. If you only want heating, no hot water, go down 1. The boiler will then light up on the gas and then start pumping around hot air to any of the little circle vents just down there. You've then got basically just a speed setting for that, just there, 1 through to 9. So that is all you have to do to light the boiler up to get heating only. If you want heating and hot water, you go 2 down to the very bottom. You'll then get a little amber light inside there as well, which is telling you that the water is heating up. If you go back to the middle, that turns the boiler completely off. So then if you go up 1, we've got 40 degrees of hot water, or up 2 is 60 degrees of hot water. And so that's hot water on its own, no heating. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. So you've got heating only, heating and hot water only, and slightly hotter hot water. All right, so that is how you use the boiler, nice and easy. Let's pop the bed down. Okay, so the next bit I want to show you is this cooker and grill. So really simple. All you have to do to light it up is push in and round to the left for the oven. And you can see the oven is lit straight up there. Same sort of idea for the grill. Push in and round to the right. There you go. Sometimes these grills you need to give it a little blow whilst they're trying to light up. They're all the same, to be honest. And that is that. So you can turn that off. You need to make sure that the door's open when you're using the grill. Obviously not for when you're using the oven, but that's just probably self-explanatory really, just like any household grill. The lock on this is pretty stiff, so you need to push on it to get this little bit to go over, but that's to stop it from moving when you're driving. Okay, so the next bit is your stack style fridge here. So these are the biggest fridges they make, or at least it's the biggest fridge they made when this vehicle was new. Okay, so something really important, that's actually quite important that happened just there. You see how it was all quite sticky when I opened it? There's only a couple of things you can do to sort of stop that from happening. If that does happen, it usually means that the fridge has just been closed for a long time. All right, they do just get a little bit stuck. But you can get what's called silicone spray or silicone lubricant. And if you just basically go around that little rubber seal there, all the way around, that just should never ever happen. All right, same for any rubber seal around this whole motorhome. Silicone lubricant is your best friend really, as a motorhome owner. Even the little rubber seal around the toilet cassette, same sort of thing. They will get sticky if you don't, silicone lubricant, all of it. But yeah, it's always a good idea to get a good can of that. Around all the lockers, windows, they've all got rubber seals. So anyway, okay, so the way these fridges work, just so you're aware as well, you've got a little sticker down there telling you the exact name and model, series, all that sort of stuff. So the way they work is they've got an electric element or a gas burner on the back. All right, so they've got a 12-volt element for when your engine's running, a 240-volt element for when your electric hookup is plugged in, and the gas flame obviously for when your gas is switched on. Okay, so the way that the actual fridge worked, it's an AES fridge, so that means you can leave it on AES, which is automatic energy selecting. Okay, so it will automatically, if you want it to, it will automatically select which energy you should be using. So automatically it's chosen gas for me, and it's chosen that because I haven't got the electric hookup plugged in, as I said, and I also don't have the engine running. So that'll just go through and it will light up on gas. If I want to manually switch between those, press and hold on this little left-hand button here, and it will start flicking through the other ways of using the fridge. All right, so this one just here is the electric hookup element, and you can see there it's flagged up a fault code. That's because the electric hookup isn't plugged in. The next one is automatic, and again it will choose gas. The next one is 12 volt, again fault code because the engine isn't running. and then the last one should be manual on gas. All right, so the way that you should use it, so let me just sort of explain. So all these fridges are the same. If you imagine, you know, right now this fridge is warm, it's not cold inside by any means. So the fridge itself has to get cold from scratch, basically. If you think of any household fridge that you've got new in the past, they take a good 3 or 4 hours to actually get cold from the start, even sometimes longer than that. So if you start, you know, if you light this fridge up, it will not be cold within half an hour or an hour. You know, it will take a good 3-4 hours to get cold. The only two ways that you can get this fridge cold from, you know, from start like that is either via the gas. It's either via the gas or the mains. Okay, and as I said, they'll take a good 3 or 4 hours. And then once you've actually pre-cooled the fridge with all your stuff inside of it, you then just need to switch over to the 12 volt, start the engine up, and all the 12 volt element does really is hold the temperature that you've already put inside the fridge. So it just keeps the temperature that you've already put inside of it whilst you're driving. And then when you get to where you're going, switch back to one of the other two and leave it. And that is honestly it. So again, sometimes these things can be a little bit awkward to explain, you know, but once you get the hang of it, super easy. Not much to it at all. What else have we got? So, in regards to the solar panel as well, I'll just mention that you don't actually have to do anything with, you know, the regulator that I showed you down there next to the battery. You don't actually have to do anything with that. All that it does is just regulate the amount of power that comes down and then goes into the battery. So you can just completely leave that alone. It will just trickle charge away as and when the sunlight's out. Having that up there is really helpful. Saves you from forking out paying for new batteries all the time. The hob just here is super simple. Just got literally a 3-burner hob. You will need an igniter of some description to light these up because there's no ignition for them. And the other bit in here as well, actually. So this brown box just here is your paperwork for the habitation side of the vehicle. So that is pretty well full up. You have got a fire extinguisher in here, which I know, you know, in real life, that is actually a pretty good position for it to be because it's right next to the cooker and all that. But really, in like a sort of habitation check sort of frame of mind, if you like, that should really be in here somewhere, so it's a bit more accessible. But you know, in my opinion, that's a pretty good position for it anyway. In this locker, you'll see that you've got a little floor here that somebody's put in at some point, and then just down lower you've got a few electrical bits and pieces. So on the left hand side here, these are your 240 volt trip switches, just like any household trip switches. So if you can't get any electric, you know, any sort of 240 volt power to work, have a little look in there and make sure they're in the upright position. You've then got this one just here that says GS on it. That is your battery charger. And next to that, we've got your fuse box. So that's your 12 volt fuses. So I don't really need to show you anything about those, but I just need to show you that they're there. And then the last bit is the bathroom. So the bathroom itself is, you know, pretty straightforward really. All you've got is the shower in here with obviously the drains at the bottom there. Shower screen comes across all the way like that. If it was up to me, I would say to you, leave this in this position here when you're driving, because you've got this little button here which goes behind this to stop it from moving. It pushes out and locks in, and then you squeeze the little red bit to release it. So that's that. So yeah, the only bit I need to show you really is the toilet. So the way that it works is you've got your fresh water flush just here. This button just here pumps around the flush fluid around the inside, and when you want to drain it into the cassette, pull this flap. That opens up the cassette flap there and just drains whatever's inside here into the cassette, and then pull it back over. that is about it, really. Nice and simple. So I think I've pretty much shown everything I can. I'm not sure there's anything else really. So we're just going to give it a good valet on the inside now, and we should be ready for you to pick the vehicle up on Monday, and we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks very much.